Did you know there are 109 senators, 360 House of Representatives members in the National Assembly?
Nigerians did not elect the IG. We did not elect the chief of staff.
But I see this as a little challenging moment that we must apply wisdom.
This time around, Mr. President, once you pass this resolution, you must personally ensure.
Say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it.
Did you know, apart from making laws for the good of our society, each of the elected members are expected to carry out constituency projects so as to drive home the dividends of democracy? Did you know that you should know what they are doing? Join your celebrity host, Abasiodu Idion Absobaba, on a mission to find out what your representative is doing in the National Assembly. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at NASS Insider. Visit www.nassinsider.com.ng. Email nassinsider@gmail.com. For sponsorship details, call 0813 580 4886. NASS Insider, keeping tabs on the legislature. Today on the program, we have a great personality, Senate Minority Leader, talking about Senator Sen.Enyinnanya Abaribe. He's going to be talking about the aftermath of the NASS protest, Nigeria's development strikes, as well as a couple of politics. We shall be doing this on the program. Thank you for joining us. You can follow us on our social media handles as shown on the screen as well. Remember, this program can be shared by you so that millions of people around the world can also see and know what's happening in the National Assembly. One might ask, who is Senator Sen.Enyinnanya? Maybe a few words.
Well, I'm the senator representing Abia South. I've been in the Senate since 2007. So this is my fourth journey into the Senate. I can be regarded as an indigent.
Okay.
Prior to that, I used to be the deputy governor of Abia State from 1999 to 2003. From 2003 to 2007, of course, I was outside in the political wilderness, as it were. And I'm a married man. I have 3 children and 3 grandchildren.
So you're already a sugar daddy, a sugar grandpa.
I'm a grandfather,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm very concerned about this country. I'm very, very concerned about the legacy that we're leaving to our children. And when I look at my grandchildren, I want them to have a future that's meaningful to them, not the trajectory that we're going through at the moment. So that's it about me. I'm a homegrown person. I went to school in Nigeria, from elementary school to the university to higher education, tertiary education. I was a lecturer. I've also worked in the corporate world. I've been a banker. I've been an insurance person. I've also tried my hands at doing some business. I owned a business. And it's at the point at which I went into politics that I had to let go of some of those things. So I have a gamut of experience ranging from academia all the way to governance. And so I think that if I have a view on anything, it is well considered. It depends on my experience in Nigeria, my interactions with people, and what I feel should be what should be the best for Nigeria at the moment.
So, as they mentioned, sorry for cutting you a little bit short. At the mention of Senator Baribe, a typical Nigerian perhaps finds a voice. What kind of inspiration do you leave behind at every time you have an opportunity to talk about the issues at the Red Chamber?
Well, let me put it that Nigerians have been very, very kind to me. I get this reaction and feeling from Nigerians wherever I meet them, and they are so, I would say, uh, expressive of uh, their feelings about me. They tell me, please continue doing what you're doing. You're doing well for us. It gives me joy. Of course, there's also the other side of those who continue to deride me because they feel that I talk too much against the government of the day, and those who think that it's a personal thing between me and the president of Nigeria, President Buhari. But they don't understand that it's not anything personal. I just have to point out the way we're going. And if I say that where we're going is going to lead us nowhere, and I mean, everything that's happening to us today is pointing to that fact. I think when in 2017 I sounded the warning to Nigerians that our president needed to quit this stage, that it was obvious that he could no longer manage the complexities of this country. Everybody called for my head. But we can see it today. A couple of days ago, farmers brutally murdered in Bono. And then when you look at the image of all those people lying down there, whose throats have been slit, their fathers, their mothers, their parents of people, their brothers and sisters of people. And it just seems as if we just don't care anymore. There's nowhere in the world that we can have this level of carnage going on, that you will have a viable nation. It's just destruction that will come upon everyone. And every patriot has always said we need to take a deeper look at this whole thing. But whenever it comes and whenever you make such, I would say, expressions of outrage at the sheer uh, the helplessness that is felt by everybody, the sheer helplessness felt by everybody, you seem to think that maybe we need to push the reset button somewhere, and
But one would have argued one would have argued that the carnage we have today started way back, say 10 years ago, and we had the government in place previously, and then over time, government, the present government and government in the past had put up certain effort, either by the military or otherwise, to make sure that we don't continue to have this carnage. Are you saying there hasn't been any form of improvement from what used to be in the past?
what I'm saying is that you are making the case that this particularly inept government is making. Somebody has a job, refuses to do the job, things are getting worse, and then you challenge the person on not doing that job, and then you say, oh, 10 years ago. No, 10 years ago you can drive from here to Kano without being afraid whether you are going to be kidnapped on the way. Now you can't even go from here to Kaduna. Every day everybody is scared. People pour into trains to use the train to come. Of course, the train that they shouted that, oh, it was them that did it, it wasn't this. And now the train stops on the way, which means that what was paid for, probably not new locomotives. I mean, Look, 10 years ago, I could drive myself alone, and I've done it severally, to go from here to Kano to board a flight to go to Egypt. I've done it. And I was never scared. I wasn't afraid. Now, nobody tries that. Why? 10 years ago, were people in Katsina paying to go and harvest their, their farm produce? 10 years ago, where people, so let nobody tell us that. Other country, other regimes dealt with this matter. What we're telling you is that this particular government did not deal and enabled this whole thing that you see. Enabled them, because when this government came into place in 2015, I remember very well, that was when we started having the so-called herdsmen coming. And we started shouting that these people are coming from outside this country and nobody knows what their intent, and they need to be checked. And people in this government continue telling us, oh, it was because there were old cattle routes that there was now a farmer and herder clash. That was the first thing they told us. And we said, no, this is not a farmer and herder clash. Because the herders has always been there. The Nigerian want that this is nothing but an invasion of this country. That was from 2015, 2016, 2017, and we continue shouting until they started killing people in Benue and all that. And of course, the government always had an excuse. When people like us complain, they said, oh, it is these people in the opposition, that it was politics we were playing. And look at where we are today. Nowhere in the country is safe. Nowhere. And it has led to the southwest states now setting up a Moteku. Every other part of this country trying to find a way of setting up their own security outfit, because the white people, if you want to say, a stitch in time. At the point that we were saying, do this, because this was necessary. At the point that under the Jonathan government, and there was this Boko Haram, and we had an army commander, General Hejika, who were decimated Boko Haram, and they were being pushed back. Rather than let that happen, this same set of people who are in APC today in office were the people who continue shouting that Northerners were being killed, and said that they were going to report Hejika to the International Criminal Court and all that, and harried Jonathan and said he was killing everybody, and even got the same Boko Haram to now say they wanted to negotiate with the federal government at that time, and designated General Buhari as their own spokesman to negotiate for them. That was what happened. The history is here. We know all this. Now, because of enabling these people in order to capture power, now you have enabled them, you have captured power, and now you can no longer get rid of them. How? And so that was how the narrative continued changing. It started changing from being the insecurity was due to farmers, herders, old cattle route. Then it changed to, it was now people that were left from the vestiges of the war in Libya after the death of Gaddafi. Then it moved over to insurgents, and they now changed their name and now call them bandits.
Under the present circumstance, what would have expected the Senate or the National Assembly to have invited the military heads, the defense chief, as well as all other military bodies to come explain to the Senate what the solution could be?
No, this has always happened. We have always invited them, and they come and they make bland statements, and they end up not being able to give you any insight into what is it that they are doing.
Does that make them inefficient? Would you say?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. Let's put it this way. you're given a job and you're unable to do the job and the things get worse. So what else would you call it? You don't call it inefficient. They are totally incapable of dealing with this matter. And it's obvious. Every football game, because Nigerians like football, so we can use the football analogy. When you're playing a game, what a coach does is that when he sees that his pattern and his tactics are not working, he will introduce either new players or try to get them to change their style and do things. You must be able to do something else. But what do we see? People are murdered, houses are razed down, every bad thing is done, and then the presidency issues a statement, oh, there are so many insane people, this and that, and we are given a marching order. We are given a marching order to the military to contain them, and then of course everybody forgets that in a few days another worse thing happens. So that is what and how we find out.
So one would have also expected the National Assembly or the leadership of the National Assembly to perhaps make movements or visit some of these flashpoints like the Borno.
That has been done. The leadership has been able to go there because that is the job of our committee. So the committees have been there. It is not the visiting of the flashpoint that give us that problem. You know, we just have to call a spade a spade. If they are unable to do something, you change the leadership. But we have seen that every call, and the calls have been many and from diverse people. It started from here, and yet it has gone beyond here.
In case you've just joined us, we're speaking with Senator Sen.Enyinnanya. Abaribe is the Senate minority leader of the, and of course, he is of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. Moving away a little bit from insecurity, let's take a look at the recent NSAS protest. Was that necessary?
Yes, it was necessary for Nigerians, and especially the youth, to express themselves. One of the hallmarks of democracy is freedom of expression. And we were a little bit taken aback when the government now turned it into, what was being expressed was no longer an effort at of young people to say the way the security agency, especially the police, were doing their jobs was not in line with their rules of engagement. When I was a youth, my olden days, I used to have a big afro because that was what was in vogue in the 70s, from 1970, 71, 72, when we were in secondary school. The vogue was the big afro. Now, the vogue for youth is to have a dreadlock. So that means that if our vogue was a dreadlock at that time, I probably would have also had dreadlock just like them. And so everybody who has a dreadlock now becomes a criminal. So how can you criminalize people on the basis of that? How could you criminalize somebody on the basis of owning or carrying a cell phone? And people were going through very, very serious problems. And it started from organized extortion. Now it became downright, I don't know whether you call it extortion anymore. Somebody who is a trader is going from Abia and is going all the way to Lagos. And so, prior to this time, they used to carry their cash in the buses, and then there was so much armed robbery, there was so much this, and then, oh, everybody now say, why? You can transfer money, you can do this, and say, okay, fine. So they transfer money to their agents, or they leave money in their to be able to pay when they get there. And they stopped on the road. They are all matched out, and the police brings out their phones and tell them to open it and check their bank transactions. And when they see any money that is substantial there, they turn around and call the person a 419 or something and say they are arresting the person, only to take him so that he will transfer all the money from him into their own pockets. And some of them were even carrying POS machines. And people, they were murdering people, they will kill people because the person will transfer the money and they know they can be traced, they will shoot the person. And then it now is that armed robbery, armed robbery. So they were doing so many criminal things. And it was spread all over the place. And I'm a senator, I represent Abia. And every time I will get calls, I will get phone calls, and mothers and other crying, say, they've just arrested my son. He didn't do anything. They pulled him out of a keke and said that he was carrying a phone. How did he buy the phone? How can this be part of our system or part of our policing? So that was what was being challenged by our youth. And I think that, of course, the culmination of all many other things and the frustrations that people have is why they now came out to say, no, let the government do something. Then we were here. I even went out with the Senate leader, and we went to meet this set of protesters at the Senate gate. We spoke with them. They gave us their list of demands. They were nice. They were quiet. They did not do anything. The next day, they now called us and said they were coming back to show us 5 of the vehicles that they had, that the windscreens had been broken and that their cars had been vandalized. Why? And they showed us the footage of thugs recruited by the same government to attack them around Bega.
But you cannot prove that.
We can prove it because you could see where they were dropped. The people had all the footage. You could see them being dropped in police vehicles. And then they came out with their sticks to go and attack these people. So it was at that time that all these things now degenerated and all manners of things happened. So it was so easy for people to continue to want to change the narrative and now call it something else. And even the most ridiculous is to turn around and say, oh, it was even this us in the opposition party that sponsored it. How could anybody think that way? How? So, what we find really is that when you have people who are totally clueless and don't know what to do, the easiest thing for them to do is to find people that they will blame. And so if you check the trajectory of this government, there have always been, it's always another set of people. It's always those people. And things are degenerating right in front of them. But now, they never accept.
But now we have the panel in each of the states of inquiry, the judicial panels of inquiry in each of them. Do you think this will in any way bring justice to the families affected? Have you as a person too made efforts to see those affected or victims as you narrated earlier?
No, we have always had to deal with the victims. We have always had to try to help the victims. But I don't think the panels are going to be effective. And the reason for me is simple.
What's the reason?
The federal government controls the police. Police are an arm of the federal government, no states. And so if a state finishes its inquiry, what is it going to do? It's going to take whatever reports it gets.
Government?
Which government? To the federal government? To do what? To ask the Attorney General of the Federation to do what? To prosecute the policeman?
So do you see possible reform?
I do not see, yes, I only see that maybe they will change their modus. Maybe there will be a different way of looking at things. But not that anybody is going to get punished. And that is the bane of our society. People get away with heinous crimes and don't get punished. And so the next person continues with it. Now, prior to, about the time they were setting up all this and all that, and there was this hue and cry over the Lekki, this thing. The Attorney General of the Federation, if you remember, made two statements. And you know, because of all the things that were happening, people were not taking note of what the Attorney General said. He said, number one, that they couldn't be sure that it was soldiers, that it must have been some rogue elements, something like that, and that nobody was sure. I mean, the Attorney General preempted what was even going to happen in the and of course, after saying all that, the Lekki, the panel, the military now went to the panel to admit that, oh yes, that they went there, but by the time that enough footage had now been shown and circulated worldwide. So, can you imagine what it is? The chief law officer of our nation had preempted what was going to be said and ended up making himself a laughing stock because, of course, he had now said that no such thing, no such person, he was this, and then the people now came and say, yes, we actually came there. You see the difference, and that's why I said that even if they bring out their reports, they're going to throw it under the table.
I have something here that might look like a respite on the IGP. Shortly after his ban of the operatives of the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad, the SARS, he hurriedly also set up the Special Tactical Squad. And what we later had as ISWAT, just within that one.
What I said, if you recall, is that there's going to actually be change. There's the need for the police to have a squad that is far more than the normal policing, that have to deal with dangerous criminals, that has to do intelligence and all that. That is necessary. But it is the modus and the fact that they moved beyond their remit to now become an extortionist arm of the police. And it got to the ridiculous extent that even if you go to report them, go to the regular DPOs and all that to say, oh, this thing happened here. The DPO say, I don't know anything, please. These are SARS from Abuja. You know, in other words, they were a rogue outfit that were not controlled organs of the police. And so, what we expect going forward is that a much more rigorous training will be given to them and a pattern set for them that will take them away from this unholy way of making money off our citizens. A citizen struggles, gets power for himself through a generator, doesn't have public power. He struggles, gets water for himself because he doesn't have public water. He struggles to create a living for himself because there's no social safety net. And on top of it, when he's able to find his head above water, he's beaten down again by all this type of things. And everybody at a particular time now became an extortionist. Is it road safety? Is it civil defense? Almost everybody was now on the, I would say, making the ordinary Nigerian citizen the the subject of multiple harassments. And I think that it's not.
What should be the National Assembly's mindset at this point?
No, what we did is that, the National Assembly, a couple of, just about a month ago or so, we had done a comprehensive review of the Police Act. Now, what is going on has nothing to do with the law and all that. It just has to do with the operations. And that is completely within the purview of whoever is.
So would you personally support perhaps control of the police by the state police?
No, we have already talked about state police. That's a different thing entirely. We said, and part of what we were also saying, is that the country has become too large, too diverse, and to now be managed from the center. It's just not there. Two, the government at the different state levels not having operational control over makes also a little bit of inefficiency. So where they should work fast or get resources or do anything, somebody is waiting for something to happen from Abuja. And so that, I think, negates actually, because some of the time investigations can take a long time. Some of the times you need to quickly react to be able to get a response. And it is those things that make crime to fester.
Welcome back, Senator Sen.Enyinnanya Hakota-Baribe is still here with us on the program. Do you want to be the president of Nigeria in 2023? Do you have any interest?
Let me make a statement concerning the NSAS that most people, and even those who did the NSAS, tend to miss.
Okay.
Elections matter. And therefore, in the same way that people were able to organize themselves and get themselves to come out and do the NSAS protest, let it be that these youths are able also to organize themselves, register, have voting cards, and come out and vote out whoever they think will not serve their interests. Because if you are unable to affect the process, then you're not going to be able to have the benefit of what is coming out of the NSAS. The government might do a few cosmetic things, but then if the essential things that you wanted to be done were not done, and the only way you can do it is that you have to retire this government. And for you to do that, you must come out and vote. Otherwise, between now and whenever the next election will come, the narratives will continue to change. And all that you will hear at that time, there was even no NSAS. And these people who died and the people who were killed in Lekki and all these people who actually put their lives on the line in doing this protest will have done so in vain. So I challenge Nigerian youths and the NSAS people not to let this opportunity lapse. Because what we find, those of us who are politicians, is that when the time comes for elections, people are lackadaisical, people don't care so much, people walk away on the day of election, the youths are playing football and doing other things. And somebody comes in and does not have their interests. And we will all end up having this type of situation. So that is my take on the NSAS. Now about 2023, let me just say this. I suspect that it is elements from this same government that has put in this just to distract people from their problems of today. Elections are going to be in 2023. If elections are going to be in 2023, we have several years to get there. We just have done an election in 2009. This is 2020. And all of a sudden, there's a hula baloo, and people are running all over the place and say, oh, whether it is this or that. I think that is just a distraction. We have very serious economic problems. When we look at the indices today, inflation 14% and going up, balance of payment very bad. We're using half our earnings to pay for our debt. We have a debt overhang and debt burden of 80-something billion dollars. Not, I mean, the one that we exited, we were 30-something billion. So within the period that we exited, and now we are gone to 80-something billion dollars. It's unsustainable. And what it leads us to do is that after a little while, we won't have credit anymore. Because anybody who wants to lend money to you, we have to check your credit rating. And if you're spending everything on, how would you, now you're just going to be a basket case. And therefore, you will probably not get more money to borrow. And so, what I think we ought to be looking at will be, how do we come out of this severe economic depression that we find ourselves? Government just announced on their own that we have just gone into recession. The man on the street knows that he has been in recession a long time and it continues. He can't get a job, which is the most debilitating thing that can happen to any human being when you're unable to feed for your family and you're unable to feed. And so people come out of the universities every day, they're churning out thousands of graduates, and they are unable to get a job. And so frustration sets in. They are there 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, no job, and they're looking at our people. And our elite are showing obscene extravagance. And I mean, what do you expect? What you now expect is that, oh, crime will climb to high heavens. I get texts every day, not just the text of those who want you to help them in one way or the other. I get texts of people who are now saying, you send this money to us, or we're going to come and kill you, we'll kill your family. This is happening now. Even I got one that said, oh, pay me in Bitcoin. And I was like, I'm the person fighting this government because I know that they are not doing well. And yet, I'm seen as part of the problem. And so, the ground is being continually set by this government for a very, very bloody revolution against everybody. And what do? First, you have to always have a buffer. The middle class is the buffer. When you erode everything about the middle class, what else do you want to get? And so we just don't seem to get the fact that we are in very, very deep economic morass. And inside that morass, somebody now comes out and tells you, oh, yeah, is it going to be this person or that person? The question I always ask, what is it that stops one group of people? And you look at them and say, okay, these people, they cannot be president. What is it? I don't see that. So when you ask me,
do you see the Southeast?
Do you see the South? What is that supposed to mean? Does it mean that if tomorrow you have a president, Peter Obi, the first thing he will do is to break up this country, or the first thing he will do is to go and bring Nnamdi Kanu to come and do a Biafra? Is that what a president Peter Obi will do? Or is that what a president Ngige will do? The first thing he will do is to think about breaking. So when people with that kind of mindset, you just see that people are just being mischievous. All of us are Nigerians and we are here. And no Nigerian is more patriotic than another Nigerian. And in fact, if you're looking for those who are patriotic Nigerians, it is the Igbos. Because they are the people who go and put roots everywhere. They are the people who put roots and develop a place. They go to Lagos, you give them a canal, they fill it up, they develop it, it becomes an estate, the government starts to take revenue from them. So they go to Kano, they find a place, they develop it, it's an open and barren place, and all of a sudden you have shopping malls, you have all manners of the opportunities and good things of life there. And the government comes to take taxes from them. The standard of living of everybody is sent up. Who does it? It is the Igbo. So if you want to find somebody who is so cosmopolitan and has a breadth of knowledge of this country, that is the Igbo. And then somebody turns around and tells you, oh, because a civil war was fought, therefore he does not have the capacity to be. So I don't answer those questions anymore. The reason why I don't answer those questions anymore is that, number one, I think that we need to focus on today. Because the trajectory we're going now, I do not think that it can be sustained in the next 2 or 3 years. So how do you think that there's going to be an election if you have not been able to get the citizens of this country to be able to feed themselves? So if every year more and more people are going into the poverty bracket, now we have moved from being the poverty capital of the world to even the more invidious one, that we have the largest number in the world today of under 5 deaths. That tells you that there is no health facilities for millions of our citizens. All over the world, the largest number. And these were things that used to be done. Okay, we'll be hearing about Bangladesh, all those Asian countries, but they've been able to pull themselves out of poverty. And we're sitting down here playing.
So, but we're also aware of some economic policies of the government, which includes the N-Power program, meant to give succor to the very downtrodden. We're also aware of some humanitarian. I want to also commend the federal government for its management of the COVID-19 pandemic. Looking at the statistics compared to those of other African countries, would you say there is nothing to look at and take away?
Those things that you're looking at are not sustainable things. The End Power program, the previous batch say, oh, that they have just been left in the lodge. The government just woke up the other day to say, oh, that they are opening another portal for them to do something, which means that it was not well thought out. You just give money to people. I think that really part of what we do should be to design policies to make production take preeminence in everything and not consumption. When they say, oh, that they're giving palliatives, oh, they're giving money to this, so you end up always giving for consumption, not giving to production. And so, if we could, slightly adjust our policies to say to us, Abia, Imo, Enugu, all that Delta, these are the cassava belt. How do we get ourselves out of subsistence cassava to cassava that is of such grown in such magnitude that we can export it because it's used for pharmaceuticals and all that? That is the question I think we need to actually deal with. The federal government through the central bank was doing an anchor borrowers and okay, this or the one, and then all of a sudden we no longer know exactly what is going on there. And I think I saw a report that said that there's so much that has happened there that people simply took the monies and walked away, which means that maybe we were also not looking very, very strongly at the way the agricultural funding was being done. I'm not saying that the government is totally useless. I'm only saying that maybe they need to focus more on that than our focusing more on the politics side of who goes to be what. Because we continue to say we got to be alive and we got to be able to feed and we got to be able to have a good life before we can also go to that one. And I know that the politics is necessary for what Obama called the more perfect union. But you know, we have what Obama also called the fierce urgency of now. The fierce urgency of now, which is you must deal with the looming food crisis that is coming, and of course, the insecurity that is bedeviling us everywhere. When I say looming food crisis, you just take what happened a couple of days ago. So if you were part of all those farmers, of course, no, that whole famine, the whatever they were going to harvest, everybody's going to run away. That whole thing will go to waste. Most likely, the insurgents will come to harvest it and use it to sustain themselves to fight against the country. And we continue to always ask ourselves this question: what is it that makes it not so possible, so impossible for us, for a corner of the country in and around Lake Chad, that we cannot, get to grips with it? What is it? And it comes right back to the question or the answer that was posed by Chinua Achebe, where he said that there is nothing wrong in the Nigerian character. There is nothing wrong in the Nigerian person. All that Nigeria suffers from is a failure of leadership. Every other thing falls under that. And so whenever we continue to pander to one ethnic thing or the other, whenever we continue to try to excuse the inefficiencies of people, we still come back to that same point. It's a failure of leadership.
How do you relax? I found you very early here at work. I think you're one of the first senators who come to work. How do you
I come to work here every morning. I close and go home and I sit at home. And I stay with my family. I play music. I watch soccer.
You say music?
Oh, yes.
Your favorite song? What genre? What genre of songs? What genre
No,
of songs?
I actually, I don't know how you put it now.
Okay.
I like music from everywhere.
Okay.
And then I have some favorites among the old and the new.
Okay.
In the old, my favorite musician is Fela.
Oh, wow.
In the new, my favorite musician is Adekunle Gold.
Wow.
So you now know that I have my... Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
And your favorite meal?
Eba cross soup.
Wow. Thank you so much. So what would you say to upcoming Nigerians, young people who are listening and perhaps watching you right now?
Well, I still have to tell the youth, do what you want. You will always do what you derive pleasure and joy from. And never let anybody else decide for you how your journey in life will be. Once you make your own decision, stick to it and have patience. I think part of the real problem we have today is that we are in a Me Too generation. So everybody wants to say, okay, me too, let's catch it now.
So has it been any time you said, oh, I wish I wasn't into this politics of the thing?
Oh, yes.
And what happened?
Between late 1999 and 2003, there were times I actually wrote a resignation and tried to quit, but circumstances made me not to quit.
Wow.
At a point, and I said, is this really worth it? I asked myself, is this really worth it? Because of the venality of human beings and of all the things that happened to me. I have an upcoming book coming.
Wow.
My biography. I actually have it on the table there. I have the dummy. And by early next year, we're going to make it public to Nigerians so that they could have an idea. And also for the youth, they can have an idea how you can rise, how you can go from one thing to the other. And then, of course, you can have setbacks. Everybody has setbacks. But how you bounce back after that. Any man who falls and is unable to rise is the person who has failed. But it doesn't matter how many times you fall. So long as you can get up on your feet. I think it was Awolowo would have said that.
That's how we're going to end the show. Thank you to everyone who's made this possible. I'm supervised by them. Have yourself a pleasant day.